15 minutes. We'll keep all questions until the end. So if you have questions, just send them to the chat room. And at the end, I'll collate the questions and we'll take as many as possible. So our first panelist is Dr. Denise Adjei. She's president of Protocol International. Dr. Adjei, welcome.
And thank you, Dr. Kieh, again for your foresight in bringing such an important topic on business etiquette to the table. So let us lean in to learn more about this significance. Again, my name is Denise Adjei, the owner of Protocol Services International, and I am truly honored and excited to be invited to present to you on the importance of business etiquette. So let's first take a look at the definition of etiquette. Etiquette refers to rules or guidelines governing polite behavior. Now, when most people hear the word etiquette, the first thing they think of are rules or guidelines on how to use forks and knives. But etiquette is much, much more than that. Sometimes you will hear the terms etiquette, and sometimes you will hear the term protocol. It is important to note these two terms are interchangeable. Today, in the business world, the term protocol is often used instead of etiquette because it sounds more businesslike and official. So going forward in this presentation, I will use the term protocol, and in some cases, like in a few minutes, I will use etiquette. Now, there are many types of etiquette, but I will name only a few. For instance, there's corporate etiquette. Corporate etiquette refers to how an individual should behave at work. Then you have the social etiquette. Social etiquette is important for an individual as it teaches the person how to behave in the society. Next, seating dignitaries at an event. Now, this refers to proper seating arrangement. For example, suppose you've planned a high-level event and you invited dignitaries such as the president of a country or the prime minister of a country to your event, or other dignitaries, let's say. You need to know the correct rules for the appropriate seating. There are correct rules. So, and there are other types of etiquette, such as bathroom etiquette, dining etiquette. We've heard of dining etiquette, and I have sat next to many people who did not know which drink or which glass to drink out of. They ended up drinking out of my glass, and therefore I had to drink out of the other person's glass. So it's very important to know these etiquettes, these rules, right? And there's telephone etiquette. There are proper etiquette for all occasions, even in your everyday life, in which these rules are vital for each situation that you find yourself in. These type of etiquette that we mentioned are called your social skills. According to the Protocol School of Washington, 100 executives said that social skills are essential to succeeding in business and social life. Now, another type of etiquette is business etiquette, or we could say business protocol. Business protocol guidelines by which an individual conduct business. The business protocols are extremely crucial to the success of business. The business protocols are a must-have reference for communication with governments, business officials, business owners, and international organizations, and for building relationships. After my retirement of 27 years in the Houston airport system, I attended and graduated from a nationally known accredited educational protocol institute, which is called the Protocol School of Washington. And that's where I learned that protocol is one of the very vital tools to have in your toolbox to help your business to become successful in your country in the international arena. Because with it, one can make a business deal, and without it, one can get that business deal. Let's say your business have a good product. It's an outstanding product. But if you don't know the rules or guidelines dealing with your clients or your potential clients, you can surely embarrass yourself as well as your company. Let's look at the ultimate meeting and greeting of business protocol for interacting with others. Now, when you say meeting and greeting, that sounds a little simple. But how you meet and greet is the most important part of the visit with your potential clients and your clients. Remember the saying, your very first impression is your last impression. Now, under the meet and greet category of business protocol, guidelines for greeting your business clients. Most of us are accustomed to shaking hands with our clients. But now, you shouldn't assume that shaking a person's hand is the proper greeting method for all cultures. For some clients, instead of shaking their hands, you need to bow, or you do air kisses from cheek to greet them. This actually really depends on what country you want to do business with. For example, in India, when you are introduced to the person with the most senior, you should take a bow. You should know that. If you don't know that, you can embarrass yourself again and your company. So when we're talking international business protocol, say for Africa, we are talking about navigating through the world of business in 54 countries that may operate somewhat differently to what you are accustomed to, especially when it comes to talking business deals and making those great first impressions. Next, there are rules for exchanging business cards under the meet and greet category. So the meet and greet category is really not that simple. In South Africa, exchanging business cards are done right after a formal introduction. So after you are formally introduced, then you exchange your business card, and not before. Then take a recognizable moment to examine the content of the business card back and forward that you're given before putting contact etiquette. Now, some individuals are accustomed to looking at people in their eyes while talking to them, but in some countries, that's a no-no, believe it or not, and considered as being rude. But if direct eye contact is customary for a particular country, there are guidelines as to where these eye contacts should be made. For example, in a business setting where it is customary to look in people in the eyes while talking, one rule, imagine a triangle. Just imagine a triangle. And the point triangle is towards the forehead of the person you are communicating. Then imagine that the base of the triangle being aligned to their eyes. For a direct eye contact, you should look at that person directly within that imagined triangle. Also, there are other rules for direct eye contact, and they are guidelines for when you are at a social setting, as well as when you are in an intimate setting. You need to know the rules because you do not want to give a direct eye contact for an intimate setting at a business setting. This is not proper, and you may offend your client. So, incorporating business into your business plan will help you build a business. It really will. So if you're wondering whether to retrieve protocol information for your organization on these rules, you may go to your local government, which we have lots of do's and don'ts for doing business with your country and other countries that you're interested in, or you may contact companies that provide training in business protocol to customize your needs to these necessary rules of etiquette. And I would like to thank you for your attention.
Littlejohn, who's the founder of Sustainable Agriculture Innovation for Liberia. This is an agriculture project in the region called Bomi, which is in the western part of Liberia. Agriculture, of course, is one of the major mainstays, if not the major mainstay of the economies of African countries. So without further ado, George Littlejohn.
Thank you and good morning, Doctor. Happy to be here with Val Thompson, Dr. Adjei, and Mr. Kirk. And I read his resume. That guy is outstanding. One of my role models. Tell you that. But when I went to my first trip to Africa was in Liberia, 2012. I went over and took water filters for the villages. And that was a big hit, obviously. And then I went back with Val Thompson. I think it was 2013 or 15. Mr. Thompson knows. And then I fell in love with Liberia. And I fell in love with Liberia because that is the point of return in my mind. Because Liberia is 100 and some odd years old, and the other African countries, and there's 54 of them, came about in the 50s and 60s. And President Mandela, and I love him, he came about in 1994, 27 years ago. But Liberia is almost 200 years old, strategically located. And Dr. Kieh and I often say, I said, well, Liberia is the point of return. He said, well, Sierra Leone. And Dr. Kieh, Sierra Leone, they did go there first. They got scarlet fever, et cetera. Then they went on down the coast. So we're in agreement on that, sir. But Liberia is a country that I really love. But when I hear people talk about Africa, they don't seem to know that there's 54 countries in Africa. That's almost like talking about the state of Texas and saying Dallas is Texas. But there's 54 countries. And it's important to know each one. And that we who are not on the continent of Africa, we're in the diaspora 6 region. Everybody that don't live on the continent of Africa are in region 6, the diaspora. You could be in France, Italy, or wherever you are in America. So that is important to me, and I hope that didn't bore anybody with that. But I adopted Liberia because I fell in love with Liberia. When I went there first with the villages, and I'm drinking bottled water, and they drinking water that looks like Coca-Cola. I said, damn, that doesn't make sense to me, Dr. Kieh. I wasn't put on this earth not to do anything. But Liberia only has 4.6 million people. 85% of those are unemployed. I said, I could do something about that, doing tourism. Well, there's a civil war there. A civil war because of those people from point of return, Dr. Kieh, went back who were ex-slaves, and they didn't want to go back. They wanted to stay in America, but the numbers growing so much that Frederick Douglass said, hell, I don't want to go back either. But nevertheless, that's where Liberia came in. And so Liberia is about the size of Harris County. 65% of the population are women and children. There was civil war caused by the American Liberians because they went and set up a slavery system like we had in America that we were freed from. So that finally got over that. But nevertheless, we're now at the point that we have to lift Liberia, and I think I can do something to do that. We have to have respect for women, respect for law, and respect for contract. If there's no respect for contract, there's not going to be any business. And I heard somebody talking about the hair business earlier. I was in Nigeria in 2019. I'm doing hair business in Nigeria. I was in Abuja and Lagos. Met young ladies who were captive of Boko Haram. They're trying to do business. And that was an amazing experience on that also. But in Liberia, we're trying to do a farm. We started this farm back in October of last year. We incorporated it. It is a viable business there in Liberia in Bone County. There's 1,500 acres, but we are farming 200 acres. And Dr. Kieh, we don't have any mechanized equipment at all. We've cleared 40 acres of land. We've already had 3 seasons of vegetables. We're trying to make people entrepreneurs, trying to feed them first, because people in Liberia live on $1.25 a day. Huh. So now we're trying to create entrepreneurs. They're becoming entrepreneurs. They're feeding themselves. We got 62 kids that we put in school and pay their tuition. And we like that, but God is empowering us to do that. We're having a piggery. We're having a fishery. We're also getting ready. We put the money up for 300 chickens, so we're going to do the chickens. And as you know, eggs are very expensive in Liberia. So once we get to the point where everybody's fed, then we'll have enough to sell. Then we have enough to sell on the local markets there. Then we have enough to export to get those dollars back in. And the people in the diaspora, they're sending money back every day and every week. But that's not enough, people in the diaspora. You need to take your butt home and also put your bucket down and build something real good for your country. Stay in America if you want to, but you have to go back also. But anyway, let me shut up. I'm ready for questions.
All right. Thank you, Judge Littlejohn. Our next presenter is Mr. Val Thompson, and he's the Chief Executive Officer of the Houston International Trade Development Council. Just by the name of the organization, you know that it is quite appropriate for the discussion we're having. So without further ado, Mr. Thompson.
Yes, can you see me?
Yes.
I can't see myself. Okay, great. Yeah, well, Dr. Kieh and Judge Littlejohn, Ambassador Kirk, and Dr. Denise Adjei, thank you all for joining me today. My name is Val Thompson. I'm president of Houston International Trade Development Council. We are a 501c3 nonprofit membership-based organization dedicated to assisting Houston area small and medium enterprises develop economically in new and emerging global markets via trade missions and trade forums in developing countries of Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, Central and South America. Now, let me go to my first visit to the continent of Africa was 2003. And the first country I visited was Ghana. I'd never been to Africa. And my son and daughter, who were twins, they decided to take on a project with Jimmy Carter, building homes in Kumasi, northern part of Ghana. So this was a 9-month project. So it was like, I'm like, yeah, I've never been to Africa. I said, can I join you guys for a couple of weeks? So I took off with them. Best trip I ever had and most memorable, because the moment I got off the plane, I fell in love with the continent. It was just that simple. And so I was in a daze for a couple of weeks looking around to find out what I wanted to get into. Because I said, I got to get into something that will bring me back to the continent of Africa. I didn't want to particularly get involved with anything political, because I know you start looking at oil and gas or construction, then you might have to get involved with the politics. I saw a young man selling some African art on the corner. I'm like, this is it, art, because it's not going to be political. But before I knew anything, I'm shipping container loads of African art from the art center in Ghana. Now, what's so special about that is Ghana's art center is regional. You get art from Mali, you get art from Nigeria, you get art from Togo, Benin, which I visited most of those countries anyway, but later on. But I'm getting art from all over the region, and I'm loading containers, and I'm supplying, I'm basically a wholesaler, and I'm supplying art to 5 different galleries. I didn't want to do gallery, but I was a supplier. I had a wonderful time. Very lucrative business. then I said, I got to do more here. I got to do more here. And I was talking to my son one day, and he said, I said, what does African Americans do and go in Africa? I said, we need somewhere we can just, call home. He said, well, Dad, it's been done. I said, where, really? He said, yeah, in the Republic of Liberia. I said, okay. So I took that note, and after I'll move on, and I'll get back to Liberia later. I founded Houston International Trade Development Council in order to be more global person, not just Africa, but at the time I wanted to, do global business in Asia, South America, what have you. However, my heart was still on the continent of Africa. So I started organizing trade missions. And I knew the best way to go on a trade mission was to actually take an elected official with me. I didn't want to go as a tourist. So I invited several elected officials. Some of them you guys may know. I took Ronald in 2011 to Ghana. It was a fabulous trip. We had a delegation of 13 or 14 people. Some people left with business, got opportunities while we were there. The 2012, I also took Council Member Wanda Adams, who some of you may know, back to Ghana. Great trip. People also left there with opportunities. I also organized a trip in 2013 to Nigeria. The ambassador in Washington at that time traveled with us. I actually went on behalf of the mayor of Houston, who had promised the Nigerians that she would go to Nigeria, but that was difficult for her, a little complicated. And she asked me would I go and present gifts in her behalf to Governor of Bayelsa State, who at that time was Mr. Dixon, to some of the other officials. We visited the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Now, I had a purpose for going, and that was Houston wanted to see a Nigerian consulate here, which we don't have. We have the third largest consulate corps in the nation is right here in Houston. It's 94 consulates, but we don't have a Nigerian consulate. And the largest Nigerian population outside of Nigeria is in the Houston area. So it wasn't making sense to the mayor of Houston. So I took documents with me to present to the Minister of Foreign Affairs to establish a Nigerian consulate here in Houston. So all that was fine and dandy. And also in Nigeria, for those who look to do for business opportunities, there's aquaculture, which Nigerians are leaning toward now, oil and gas being 95% of their GDP. They want to try to get away from that. They're looking at agriculture. They're looking at other things. The Chinese are there. I've been to 12 African countries. I'm all over the place now because I want to say a lot of things. I've been to 12 African countries, east, north, and west. But back to Nigeria, there's opportunities there in international trade. I would encourage anybody who's a small business owner who are thinking about going to Africa for business opportunities to look at trade. That's one of the easiest way you can get in, make some money, get out, whether it be importing or exporting. If you're thinking about importing, U.S. government is not going to assist you anyway. If you're thinking of exporting, there are several agencies, Small Business Administration, Ex-Im Bank, as well as U.S. Commercial Services, who will assist you if you're thinking about exporting. But international trade is definitely the way to go if you're talking about doing business in Africa. Now, also, I wanted to mention something that Judge Littlejohn said a moment ago, and that is the Republic of Liberia, which I also have a passion for and fell in love with my first visit. My first visit was in 2005, and there were still 15,000 peacekeepers, UN peacekeepers. The largest contingency in the world at that time was still there. The Liberians were coming out of a civil war. They were at the end of it. They were electing officials at that time. I still fell in love with it. It was dark at night. I stayed at the Mamba Point Hotel. Some of you know that hotel. And it was being ran by a diesel-powered generator because there was no electricity. in Liberia. But with the history, I mainly fell in love with the history, and that is, since we're approaching African American History Month, the history was really exciting to know that at some point in 1822, a group of African Americans who, in pursuit of liberty, decided to travel to West Africa and create a republic with the help of James Monroe, president at the time, and U.S. Congress. It's an exciting history, and I think there's so many of African Americans that know anything about this history, and we want to try to educate our people about it because it's one of the most consequential events in African American history, in my view. If you think about how bold you would have to be to get on a ship and go to a continent you know nothing about, again, in pursuit of history. I am honored by their efforts and ability to want to go and visit the continent where their ancestors were from. Now, let's roll back to doing business in Africa. My first advice would be to do your homework, do your due diligence. Look into the political, social, and economic realities. I mean, if a country doesn't have any money, I don't know, maybe that's not very good for you to try to start doing business there, unless you have a product that they can afford, right? Liberia, again, also is a country where we have decided to create a sister city with Houston. Now, I said Liberia, but I'm talking about the capital city, Monrovia. For those who are not familiar with the sister city associations, it was initiated by President Dwight Eisenhower in 1956, who realized after World War II there was a lot of cities in the United States as well as around the world who didn't know anything about each other, no cultural exchanges and so forth. And he initiated the Sister Cities Association so that we could learn more about, or again, exchange ideas and culture with other cities. Houston has 18 sister cities, and there's not one African city. As large as that continent is, with 54 countries, as Judge mentioned a moment ago, we don't have one. So we are lobbying, if you will, to use a quick term, for a Houston Monrovia Sister City Association. We have a lot of folks that are excited about doing that. Anybody who wants to join us, you can ask for Val Thompson at Houston International Trade Development Council. I can give you my information in a Q&A later. But we're very excited about that. And with that sister city, we'll be able to exchange ideas, change culture with the Liberians, and we're looking forward to it. Dr. Kieh is one of the ones. Dr. Kieh is actually from Liberia, and we're excited to have met him. And with that said, let's get on some questions. I'll be better with that anyway. You just jump on me with some Q&A. Thank you, Dr. Kieh.
We appreciate it. And last and certainly not least, we also have the great pleasure of welcoming Ambassador Ronald Kirk, the former U.S. Trade Representative to TSU. Ambassador Kirk will certainly provide us, as the other panelists have done, useful insights, but certainly his insights will include, from the vantage point of official U.S. trade policy making as well. Ambassador Kirk, welcome.
Well, Dr. Kieh, thank you so much for inviting me. I have to give a shout out, special thanks to my former law school classmate, friend, mentor, and brother, Gary Bledsoe, who plays a very special role in the life of Texas Southern. I am always glad to be associated with the university, that I have two older brothers and sisters who graduated from. I've been on campus a number of times, most recently as a commencement speaker, but honored to be a part of this. And what I hope will not only be an informative program, but a more hyper-focused urgent call for us to think about Africa as the extraordinary economic opportunity, as a partner, not as a beneficiary of U.S. largesse, but as a potential business partner, much as the way a lot of the world intuitively embraces the potential of doing business in China or India or Latin America. I want to thank the other panelists for your contributions. All of you have said things that made me laugh, some of which were because I violated early in my career in learning about international affairs, many of the protocols. I wish I'd had a Dr. Adjei on our staff at the city, but thank you for your contributions. And Judge Littlejohn, always good to hear from you, as well as Val Thompson. My introduction to Africa was not that dissimilar from what you've heard from others. I was privileged, in addition to my career as U.S. Trade Representative in the Obama administration, but my introduction to the world of global trade came when I was elected the mayor of Dallas, Texas in 1995. And as you've heard many of the speakers mention, particularly Val Thompson and his work, part of the work of being the mayor of a big city like Dallas or Houston or New York or any of the large metropolitan cities in our country is you very quickly come to understand the role that foreign direct investment can play. And our first responsibility as local elected officials, try to grow our economy and create wealth. So most mayors become a part of that DNA in the U.S. of advocates for both investing in our communities and through leading trade missions around the world and promoting Dallas or Houston or New York or whatever, but also inviting them to invest in our communities. I am proud of the fact that I did something no other mayor of Dallas had done to that point. And Dallas had a fairly robust international promotion program, just as Houston did. But I was elected in May of 1995. In January, I led the city of Dallas and the Chamber's first trade mission ever to Africa. And we visited South Africa and Zimbabwe and began to understand the extraordinary potential there. But my role today, you've heard enough from others about the imperative, the need. What I hope to bring are just some practical considerations for those of you looking at exporting. And I want to build on a couple of practical points that were made by some of the other panelists that I want you to do. One is there is an extraordinary, one of the things my father tried to teach, impart on us as kids, is that life's always easier if as he liked to say, if you push on an open door. And the one thing I try to impart to businesses based on my experience as U.S. trade rep, if you've never exported before, never done business outside of the United States, it's much easier to go somewhere, first of all, where you're welcome. And because if you've heard Judge Littlejohn, Val Thompson referenced, because of the unique history of African Americans in Africa and diaspora and others, there is a genuine receptivity I found throughout my work as U.S. Trade Representative all over Africa to Africans wanting to benefit from our knowledge, our partnership, our skill sets, our technology, whether it's in agriculture, software, and others, because they believe we will do so in a much more respectful way, as you've heard Dr. Adjei talk about, which is necessary. So one, do your homework, understand this is a welcome environment. Secondly, Africa has begun recently to put in place the infrastructure that you heard Judge Littlejohn talk about, which is so critical. And that's building strong institutions and adopting principles related to the rule of law. that should give you the comfort that if you're going to take the extraordinary step to travel halfway across the world, as you heard us talk about, to do business with a group of people that while we may have a historical familial relationship, you might not have a recent one. You want to make sure you're doing so in one of those 54 countries that has a strong respect for the rule of law and for contracts, so that if you are looking to export in particular, one, you know you can enter an agreement that'll be respected, that will be enforced, and others. Now, the good thing is you don't have to do this alone. And I would encourage any of you looking to export and do business to visit further with Val Thompson. But he mentioned a couple of things I want to highlight. There are great resources available to you as a U.S. business or citizen looking to sell a product around the world. The most important of which, and the easiest for you to access, are our foreign commercial services. And if you don't take anything else from this, just think about, you can either go to the local Chamber of Commerce or Houston Partnership, and they can put you in touch with the U.S. Department of Commerce's Foreign Commercial Service. They have a program called the Gold Key Service. It is most targeted for businesses that have a product that you're trying to sell. But here's what they essentially do. You go to them and say, hey, I've been to Ghana, I've been to Liberia, I've been to Kenya, I've met someone, they have a use for whatever I'm selling or providing. I think I can do more. What your U.S. government will do through the Commerce Department is say, we want to sit down, visit with you, understand everything about your product. Then they will, for it, and it is a fee-based program, but it's worth the money. They essentially go over and market your program, your product throughout that region. And then before you set foot in Africa, say, we have found 10 customers, 5 customers, 15 customers. They set up the meetings, arrange for them. So they do the pre-marketing ahead of you. You heard Dr. Littlejohn talk about his focus on agriculture, in which there's still a tremendous amount of need and desire for U.S. technology and application of agriculture. Never forget that our Department of Agriculture has as many, if not more, foreign agricultural extension offices as the Department of State does. So just know that both through the Department of Commerce, the Department of Agriculture, there are resources there to help you market your products as you decide to go into Africa. But the most important thing that I want to impart is something that I'm going to presume, if you're on this call, you are a believer in this proposition that we should be doing more to take advantage in a positive way, in a mutually respectful and beneficial way of this diaspora, and take it from a cultural one to a business one. So if you're on this call, you know that, but just know there is the opportunity, but do your homework. There are resources available. This is not a partisan call, but you should be comforted that in a new Biden-Harris administration, there will be much more respect for the critical work performed by the U.S. Department of Commerce, the U.S. Trade Representative's Office, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which frankly have been hollowed out. And so I think, one, you'll see that those offices will again be filled with competent people with the skill sets, the knowledge, and the desire to help you as you think about building these relationships with a growing continent, which is on the verge, I think, of a financial outgrowth. So I want to commend Dr. Kieh, Gary Bledsoe, and others in Texas Southern for holding this important conference, because I think this is an opportunity that is ripe for us to take advantage of. Proud to be a part of it, and I will stop here, Dr. Kieh, and be willing to answer any questions as well.
Since we have a fairly good amount of time, We're going to give our panelists 10 minutes to have some interactions among themselves, questions, comments that they may want to make. So we'll give you the next 10 minutes. The next 10 minutes to do that. Any comments or questions?
Well, I wanted to build on something Dr. Littlejohn was talking about. Too often we get intimidated. We think about trade only in the context of Boeing or Pepsi or Ford, the big, just some numbers for our audience to consider, just two takeaways. And Val, thank you for hitting the point about exporting. But a lot of Americans insular lives, being the most dynamic economy in the world, the biggest democracy, gives us the luxury to be a little bit ignorant about how much potential there is in the rest of the world. But know this, we are less than 5% of the world's consumers now. And so for a lot of people who may say, why are you telling us this? Why are we talking about it? Our growth is going to be dependent on our ability to reach all these new consumers coming of age in Africa, in China, in India. That's what the competition around the world is. Who's going to provide the food, the resources, the technology, the machinery. But the reality is 90% of U.S. exporters are small businesses. It's not Boeing. It's not Caterpillar. They are people just like you and I, just like what you heard Val Thompson talking about and Dr. Littlejohn, that have built relationships with somebody they may have sat with next in class at Texas Southern, and they have that relationship and say, look, can we do something? And agriculture is still the number one export for the U.S., not by dollar cents, but it is the one area that we win the most because the world, for the most part, believes in the safety, the sanitary status of what we grow and produce in this country. So don't overlook small things, small goods and services and think there's no place for you. That could be a great opportunity for you to get started. And I'd just be curious how Dr. Littlejohn feels about that. I mean, I know you're on the ground, but.
Yes. Tell you, it's so exciting. Right now, just a few weeks ago, Dr. Denise and I were approached, and this president of this college took us to lunch and said, hey, can you all get me some students from Liberia come to Texas and learn some trades and go back to be teachers? I said, well, hell, that's perfect. Because as we say, we had the Civil War there, the education, and we have people there who can learn all these skills. We're getting ready to start doing solar panels. And we look at our little telephone, they can't even charge a telephone hardly over there unless they go to outside. You know what I'm talking about. But we will be doing solar panels. We'll have people going back teaching welding, teaching farming, teaching how to do maintenance, fabrication, solar energy, carpentry. And you probably saw Elon Musk. He has some special bricks that he's making. And we're going to send a letter to him and say, hey, let us know about those bricks that he's saying that could be put throughout Africa. So I'm sort of excited. And but Dr. Kirk, I tell you, you really made my day listening to you.
No, look, you all were doing it. All I did was go negotiate. You and Val are on the ground, man. Y'all are the risk. I appreciated what you and Val said. We have to be honest with our people. And I'm not saying we take for granted. We're blessed enough to live in a country, believe. Val and I get into a business deal. We have, a contract law is old in this country. We get into a dispute. We go to court. We get it resolved. That's not that way everywhere around the world. And look, one of the things, let's be honest, one of the things that held Africa back until now was one, and I can't remember if it was you, Dr. Littlejohn, Judge Littlejohn or Val that noted, before now, Africa is not a unified continent. This is 54 different countries. The rules are different in every one. Sadly, Africa trades less with Africa than any continent in the world. But recently, and I don't want to get too technical, listeners, if you can get all of this, if you just go on USTR's website, it's ustr.gov, hit the Africa button. But one of the good things that we started in the Obama administration, the African Union finally just entered something called the African Continental Trade Area. And it, for the first time, is trying to unify Africa to make it easy so that, let's say, whatever Dr. Littlejohn is doing in Liberia, somebody says, we'd sure love to see that in Ghana or Kenya. They can now trade that as easily as we move goods from Houston to Dallas. There's also something called AGOA. It's the African Growth and Opportunity Act. It is the main tool by which, if you want to import, you can bring those truckloads of arts and others that I think you heard Val talking about to the United States duty-free. But do your homework ahead of time. Don't think about going to Africa without sitting down with Val Thompson before you go.
Right. And there's Prosper Africa, Prosper, Prosper, Africa.com. You all should get on that website. And that's one of the latest things that the United States government has dealing with the continent of Africa.
Ambassador Kirk. Ambassador Kirk.
Val,
I've got I may consider this a geopolitical question. Okay. Now, I've been to 12 African countries, and I can tell you that the Chinese are heavy into Africa. And they've spent something like $2 trillion investment all through Africa. If we're not investing or doing business in Africa, do you see that as a security issue for the United States?
It is a good question, requires a much longer answer than I can give her. Look, Africa is so in need, and you all both spoke to it. You were being polite. Africa needs infrastructure. I'm not trying to make a value-based comment, but I tell people, Judge Littlejohn was sort of alluding to the fact of being in some place with a diesel generator. And people always ask me for stories. What was it like going to Africa? And I told them, you can't imagine my pride to be the face of the United States for President Barack Obama going to Africa. The reception I got was incredible. And we would go into these big governmental buildings. All my meetings would be on the 10th floor to 7th floor. And every time we'd get in, Secret Service would take me to the stairwell, make my big butt have to run up 7 flights of steps. And I'm like, why are we doing this? And they said, where do you want to be when the power goes out? But in reality, Africa needs stable power. They need water. They need resources. They need all of those things. But to Val's point, China is more than willing to come in and say, we'll build you that soccer stadium. We'll give you this. But China wants Africa's raw material. Look, the great thing is Africa is the most resource-rich continent in the world. I mean, they have oil. They have precious minerals that not only China needs. They have cotton. And one of the things that's held Africa back for too long, because they didn't develop the resources to mine those themselves, Africa has disproportionately just sold its raw materials to the rest of the world. And then China takes that raw material, turns it something else. Anyway, long story short, to your point, Africa wants the money. They've taken it. They welcomed it. They were frustrated the United States did. But as I like to tell people, the best case for the U.S. showing up in Africa is China. Because after 15 years now of China coming to Africa, stripping the land, taking the raw materials, while Africa first welcomed it, then they realized China brought over their own people. There's something like 20 million Chinese workers in Africa now. They don't respect the African workers. They bring in their own workers. They don't treat them the same. Many of the buildings they have built have not been to the standard Africa wants. But in the absence of someone else coming in, Africa's like, look, we got to dance with who we bought. But that's why I made that point of pushing on an open door. Africa wants a partner that will treat Africa with respect invest in their people, do the things that you heard Judge Littlejohn and Dr. Adjei talking about, work with them. Stop looking at Africa as a charity case. Realize they've got this extraordinary pool of young people with the skill and the willingness to learn. We can partner with them in a positive way, but that does mean we have to show up. So I think rather than seeing it long answer short, Val, rather than seeing it as a threat, we need to see it as an opportunity, but we've got to get focused on it.
Dr.
And if
Kirk
won't do it, this is where groups like Texas Southern, our Black Chambers of Commerce, can proactively partner with groups in Africa to make it happen.
Dr. Kirk, what is your perspective on the diaspora? What people here in America or in England or France or Italy or wherever, they're sending money home, but it seems to me like some of them need to go home and set up businesses.
Well, look, Judge, I don't have nearly the experience history you and Val did, but look, my father and I, when he was alive, would always talk that at some degrees, he thought it was a mixed blessing. I'm going to get real old. When we went from being colored to Negroes, but from Black to African Americans. And my father was one of those always thought that was the worst thing happened to us. And he said, son, the reality is most Black people in America have never been to Africa, really don't understand it. And not all Black people are from Africa. I mean, we're all celebrating our first Black vice president, whose father is from Jamaica. Now but anyway, that is a complex subject. But where I see it is an opportunity. As with all the challenges, faults we have as a country, we're the only country that can go to the world and say, here at Texas Southern, the head of our School of Foreign Affairs is a son of Africa, and Dr. George Kieh. And we have strong Nigerian, Ghanaian populations all throughout this country. They should be our partners as we go back to Africa collaboratively and say, let's go as Dr. Adjei told us, in a respectful way, not just coming to reap the benefits, but use that diaspora as a strength that Africa sees some of Africa when the United States shows up. Personally, for me, I don't know that I ever cried harder than when I visited those slave castles in Senegal and Ghana, because it just made real for me that bloodline that has flowed from Africa to me, whether I knew it or not. So I see the diaspora as a strength and an underutilized asset that the United States has that China doesn't have, that India doesn't have. So institutions like Texas Southern, many of our historically Black colleges that I think disproportionately educate students from Africa ought to be doing more of what we're doing in this conference today.
All right. Thank you so much for the wonderful exchange. That's certainly.
Before you go, though, I know I don't want us to be guilty of all these other panels I see where all the men do all the talking and Dr. Adjei was just smiling and nodding her head, but I want to make sure
okay.
we hear
Sure,
from her.
no, absolutely. Dr. Adjei?
Okay, well, it was a pleasure being with each one of you and learning a lot about what you do. I also visited those castles that you were talking about, Ambassador, and I was just in tears myself. But I have visited the countries, and take for instance, I visited Ghana, and I also, I did visit Ghana, but I'm helping out with Judge Littlejohn with sale, and I am just pleased to be here. Let me just say, and to help pull this and lead this organization on to something bigger and better. We need to get in here. Yes.
Thank you so much for the exchange. We have a few questions up here. And anyone on the panel can answer this question. Are there any organizations that will help you network or introduce you to a community in Africa?
I would say the Chamber of Commerce and also the Rotary Club. I'm in a Rotary Club here. Val's in it, Dr. Denise in it also, but they have two Rotary Clubs in Liberia, and I'm sure they have them in the other bigger countries like Nigeria also. That would be a beginning, and everything. If you're going to do business, you got to be part of a Chamber of Commerce.
Well, Dr. Kieh, let me jump in on that question too. I would encourage becoming a member of Houston International Trade Development Council, because when the African delegations come to town, we meet with them. We have their contact information from not all 54, but probably half of them. So yeah, we have relationships in Africa, all over the continent of Africa. So yeah, join Houston International Trade Development Council. Do I give my contact information on Zoom or not, Dr.
Sure,
Kim?
go ahead.
Absolutely.
Just you go to www.houstontrade.org, or you can contact me at Val, V-A-L, at houstontrade.org. And we can put you with the contacts that you may need in Africa. I need to know what country you're focusing on. But I'll be able to.
Now, let me interrupt you for 1 minute and pretend
Please.
that for once, I'm going to pretend, aimed or not, that one of us on this panel was in our 20s and tell you to go into the chat and type that in there so they can. Or hopefully maybe one of these young folks on there will type all that in there. So
Okay. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Ambassador. Look at my beard. You know how old I am.
No. We're all old school. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted you to type that.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, I'm old school.
And Dr. Kieh,
tell everyone is that, look, if you just if you just did a Google search doing business with Africa, you'd come up with all the resources in the world. And I'm not just saying this just because Val's here. All of our chambers, all of our groups have these. You don't have to go to Washington. You have a foreign commercial office there in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying what Val's doing is kind of the one bullet point, or if you call the city, but don't overthink this. You can do that. But then secondly, and look, I'm proud to be the mayor of Houston, but I know Dallas and Houston's demographics are a little bit different. But I promise you, because of Texas Southern and Houston, you have a large African population in Houston. And I'm sure maybe Dr. Kieh, there's got to be, either an African chamber or a Nigerian chamber, but start right there in Houston with some of those groups and work your way through that. But do your homework.
I agree.
Thank you. The next question is, what is the best approach to helping food security in Africa? Helping secure food security in Africa.
That's the hard.
You're on the ground. You're doing it.
Yeah. And that is real hard, getting clean water, running water. And I think these solar panels going to be a welcome addition. I think Liberia just got their water, big dam generating power, but it's not enough for all of Monrovia. But it's we're involved with another company that goes around the world, Zoetic, putting in water supply, power pumps or whatever. But water is essential. Some people spend their whole day carrying water. It's amazing. We just take it for granted.
Amen.
You have to visit for one time.
Dallas had the great misfortune. Thank God it felt forever ago. It's hard to remember. It was only 5 years ago when we were all scared to death about Ebola. You all may not remember, the only person who ended up coming to America and dying from Ebola was a guy who showed up here in Dallas to visit his family, ended up passing away at the time. And what I tell people, the tragedy of Ebola, even if you look now at Africa trying to deal with this COVID pandemic, and it is as basic as what Judge Littlejohn, it's water. The Ebola crisis, every health pandemic in the world is a story about what it means to live in a country that doesn't have power and clean water. And so all these different projects you see, whether it's through churches or you see athletes making sure that we have water in Africa, is the beginning to their having agricultural sustainability. Now, I mentioned I love TSU. My brother and sisters went there. My sister, Connie Kirk, in the 60s, was the first singer with the Ocean of Soul. But we also have a love for Prairie View. But Prairie View is an agricultural college. And we take for granted, and what we debate in this country when we talked about applying new technology in agriculture, that is welcomed around the world. A big part of what we're doing in Africa as a government, introducing seeds, for example, that don't require as much water, or introducing seeds that will produce plants, at a bigger volume than what they do. But to what Judge Littlejohn says, the beginning of trade, if you even go back to the Bible, it was trading food. And you had to have roads and you had to have access to be able to get that agriculture to market. But I'd say if there was one thing, it is clean water, reliable power, and then sharing with them some of our what we're doing in terms of agricultural innovation, in terms of seeds development that are drought resistant, insect, disease resistant. Those are some of the most proactive programs that the U.S. has had proactively with Africa.
And some of these countries are backlashing against China's Belt and Road Initiative. China goes in and builds all these roads, they're inferior roads. In a few years, somebody has to repair them. And they make these things at the port, these agreements. And if you don't pay them, they take over the damn port.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's happening right now. And you can go to anywhere. Say Nigeria, you can see a beautiful city in Nigeria that has high rises, but you can also see the poverty. Same way with China. You go to China, I've been to 5 cities with China and Dr. Denise. Some of their cities make New York City look like a ghetto. I'm stretching that a little bit, but they also have a lot of poverty, and that is throughout Africa. But you got to have the infrastructure, and we're doing things in market, but some of the stuff is spoiled, Mr. Kirk, before we get it to the market because there's no roads. Dirt roads. But we're going to change that.
Yes, we're going to change it.
I don't have further questions from the audience. Are there any closing comments our panelists might have before I turn things over to Professor Betso? Anybody has any closing thought before we wrap up?
Well, Dr. Kieh, I just want to thank you all again. What I would say to those of you watching, we've thrown a lot at you. Don't be intimidated. First of all, do what you do best. I mean, if you're not a farmer, don't try to turn yourself into a farmer. I mean, if Africa needs lawyers, teachers, doctors, they need technology, they need power, but there are resources available. I would just encourage you, seriously, follow up with Val Thompson's organization. And also, again, all of us have a classmate, a friend, somebody we've gone to church with from Africa. Sit down, talk to them, understand their story. And as Dr. Littlejohn say, build those relationships, find out what the opportunities are there. But I would ask you to remember, what I started with. I still think, in spite of the challenges, this is an open door. And I think there are people in Africa that would love nothing more than to partner with those of us who are part of that diaspora to help Africa build and meet its potential.
Thanks again to all of our panelists for accepting our invitation and for your wonderful presentations. Certainly, this is going to be an ongoing discussion, a work in progress. We are Texas Southern University, both at the broader institutional level, and Professor Bledsoe will speak more to this. But from the view of the Barbara Jordan Mickey Leland School of Public Affairs, since we are the public policy hub of the institution, we are quite committed to working with all of you and others in building mutually rewarding partnerships with Africa and certainly with other parts of the world. So thank you very much again for honoring our invitation and for your wonderful presentations. Professor Bledsoe.
Thank you so much, Dean. That was really a fine panel, and I want to thank all of the participants, Sister Adjei, my good friend, Ambassador Kirk, Judge Littlejohn, Brother Thompson. There's such a great panel, and you bring so much great perspective to what the playing field looks like today. I am so proud that Texas Southern is wanting to be an even greater participant in this arena, to hear from such educated and enlightened individuals as this panel and our first panel. We can understand that the opportunity is truly there. I think what a number of the panelists have indicated is that in terms of economic opportunity, it's truly there today in Africa. And I know that Ambassador Kirk's dad is legendary. He's an African American and had his own plane and used to fly back in the 50s. So you can imagine that kind of rearing that he received at home. But that one comment about the, living more successful if you push open doors. I think that really is just a phenomenal thought and idea. And I think when we look at the landscape and we look at the issues relating to China that have been brought forth to us, we can see where maybe now with the opportunities that our government in Washington or whatever, some of the transition that was spoken about, maybe we can use this time and opportunity to help do more to develop the diaspora. I can say that through President Hewitt, our Board of Regents, Provost Harris, Texas Southern University is really wanting to be involved more so in these activities. One of the things that we've done, I think that you heard Ms. Williams speak about earlier, is we have decided to celebrate Africa and to celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday and Black History Month by having a series of 3 conversations that would talk about different parts of the discussion with this tremendous panel from today. And this panel discussed business opportunities in Africa. And the beautiful thing is we can see so much diversity in what was presented by the presenters. We have people that are directly involved. We have lawyers that are very sophisticated and understand the nuances in the transactions. We have those who are involved in the public partnership, private-public partnership arena to help tell us and guide us into where we need to go in terms of trying to make these things more viable. And I think add the one question that came from the chat in reference to the diaspora, saying whether or not the diaspora was a benefit or not. We heard Ambassador Kirk say very clearly he thought it was a real positive, and to have just such sophisticated information to come from, for example, Sister Adjei in reference to understanding some of the nuances that we might need to know in terms of the business protocols. But I think that we can see opportunity. And I think we heard a challenge from this panel, and it was a challenge to Texas Southern, a challenge to Black chambers in this country, a challenge to look at this as an opportunity to get more involved. I look, for example, at, I guess, is it Oregon State and Texas A&M in terms of the numbers of businesses that their universities have been involved in. And who knows, what opportunities we might actually see that come with what we've seen today. But first of all, I want to say that this is the first of 3 panels. We're hoping to continue and promote this via showing it more so on the internet, or maybe even on television. It was such a powerful panel and provides such a great basis for going forward. Next month, we're going to emphasize the cultural ties, which I think is very much connected to today. I think we also heard, and I don't mean to talk too much about the ambassador, but the ambassador talked about the concerns his dad had with the term Africa, not knowing our roots or where we're from. But I think that what we know is we need to know more about the continent of Africa, more about the place where many of us actually have come from. And there is so much commonality, and we need to look at those things in a very positive way, maybe not some of the ways that maybe have been presented by television and in the American media in the recent past or what have you. So we need to have those types of connections that really develop. I think we heard Ms. Prince in the first panel talk so much about how she developed the trust and how she felt at home, and really had a second trip right after her first trip where she could take her son with her because it was such a positive experience for him going to Africa. And we heard Sister Adjei, and we heard Pastor Kirk talk about going there and how much it meant to them in terms of the sentimentality and the understanding of their background. So we're going to talk about that next month. We've decided on February 25th. So I'd ask everyone out there to put that on your calendar, because we're going to have another great event for the Provost series here. And then I want to really commend the Provost for coming up with the idea of having this conversation series, because I think it has been a great boon to Texas Southern University. So next month, I'm hoping to get individuals such as I've extended an invitation to Ambassador Autakana Chiumbore Kwayo, who used to be the ambassador for the African Union, as maybe to be one of the presenters next month. We'll have a great group. And in March, as the final part, the Provost has agreed that we're going to be one of 6 universities to participate in a United Nations distance learning initiative. And it goes to what Judge Littlejohn was saying earlier about some of the things that were suggested to him. It's going to be a distance learning initiative, and we're going to be working with the United Nations Department of Programs and 5 other HBCUs in this country, and we're going to be offering existing courses to African students. So now in this new arena of distance learning or what have you, we'll have a greater opportunity for individuals to interface with each other, maybe even make connections through friendships, etc., through use of remote or through technology today. And we think that'll be a very positive event. The United Nations Department of Programs has asked each one of the 6 universities to identify courses within their domain that emphasize entrepreneurialism. And you can see today from what all of our speakers said and talked about the need to have more entrepreneurialism in Africa on that side, where courses like this can really make a difference. And so we're in the process now, Dean Maddox, Provost Harris, and working to identify our courses that we want to make as part of this. But also in that March initiative, we work with the Association of African Universities, and we've also worked with others as well that in this sphere. The Fareed Muhammad, who led efforts to have a program bringing HBCUs and PBIs together with African countries, where we had the president of South Africa, the foreign minister of Uganda, and many provosts and presidents of African universities in attendance at a two-day event, one day at the United Nations and then at a New York university that Dean Maddox and I participated in. We developed a lot of great relationships there that we're hoping will make a big difference there. But Fareed Muhammad, who is the person behind this thought to try to bring greater relationships throughout the diaspora, throughout the Caribbean and throughout Africa, between them and historically black colleges, predominantly black serving institutions, and higher education institutions in Africa and in the Caribbean. And I think this is a great thing. Through that, I've become acquainted with, for example, some of the new initiatives where the University of the West Indies now is offering, and jointly with the University of Johannesburg, a master's degree in reparations. And so in reparations and some of those discussions are really kind of important and pertinent today. So we're going to be developing that, and we know that Dean Maddox and other professors at Texas Southern University have taken a number of student groups over to Africa to do the kinds of things that maybe Ms. Prince took the group with last March over to Ghana to see and to understand. So that's the kind of thing we're hoping to promote more. And we'll talk about those in our February group, where we're going to kind of promote some of the tours and things like that. I know Professor Adams and others have taken groups over there as well, and we're going to try to have those and actually show some of the rich history that we have at Texas Southern University in our library that maybe people don't really know and understand. You know, I know that when I was on the Board of Regents, I found out that I couldn't believe it, but we actually have slave archives at the university where we have numerous original documents. So there's such a connection here between here and Africa. I think this will be a great thing. We're looking forward to the distance learning initiative and looking forward to the additional programming. I can't thank the organizing group enough to putting on such a great event today. So I want to thank Ms. Williams, Provost Harris, Dean Maddox, Dean Kieh, Connie Cochran, and I want to thank Dr. Rodriguez, but I also have to thank Ernest Walker over at Texas Southern, and particularly Darnell Joseph, who is an incredible technology guy to help put this all together. I want to thank everyone for participating in this. I want to thank Brother Joseph, our student regent, for being part of this and helping promote this to our student body, because we hope to have great people that come out of this and learn the different avenues where they can make a difference in the world. So I want to thank everybody for participating, and I will say go Tigers, and looking forward to working with all of you to help bring the connection between Texas Southern University and the African diaspora to make it more real and substantive, to really fulfill more so even the mission of Texas Southern University. So I want to thank all those who participated and look forward to seeing everyone on February 25th. Thank you so much. What a great event. And I couldn't be more proud of all of you that were involved in this. Thank you so much.